The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning. It's Friday. Welcome to the Ladies Room.
Good morning.
I'm Brenda. Welcome to Morris Media and the Ladies Room.
It's your girl, KayB.
We're live
in
here
holiday
today.
mode.
I know. The total holiday season is creeping up on you and right here in your face now.
December is tomorrow.
Oh, jeepers, already?
Already.
Is it tomorrow or Sunday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, my God.
Tomorrow.
Jeepers. That's like really quick. So how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was great.
Good.
How about yours?
Oh, it was good. It was good. My son didn't have an opportunity to come home, so he said he's going to come home for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So how your daughter make it home?
She made it home.
Okay. How
We
was it?
enjoyed family. It was really nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And, the holiday season, I guess it brings out the best in everybody because I read that Barack was out passing out food and Pharrell and his wife was passing out food down at the mission. So everybody was contributing and doing what they felt they needed to do to make it a safer, smoother holiday where people are not hungry and passing out food. So that was great.
Well, next year I plan on doing that, passing out turkeys and
Okay, that's
Thanksgiving
awesome.
dinners. Well, you too.
Okay.
With the court. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
That's something we can look into. We can look into and see what's happening and where it's absolutely needed, which is a lot of places.
Right.
I did, even in Lakewood, I went down, I was on Lakewood Boulevard, and I think it was Rose, and I hit a corner going west on Rose, and it was just so many people out there receiving free food from the church that's over there, I guess, and they were out there in the droves, like really. Nice. So it's really needed.
Yeah, every day, not just holidays.
I know. And the whole thing is, let me show you how to fish.
Right,
So
right.
I'd rather show you how to, pick up a skill or do something opposed to just giving you something, because when we give things to people, I'm going to use my children, for example. Sometimes I don't think they're as grateful as if they had to work for it themselves.
Right.
So, there's a lot of factors to it, though, because there's a lot of different type of people that are receiving free food, and everybody is not really able.
Right.
And then there are those that are able. So let's pick those people. But anyway, so the holidays was good. It was refreshing and it was relaxing. And how'd you do with the food? Because remember we talked about...
Oh, I got off, of course.
I kept looking at my plate like, okay, how much is on there?
We didn't have too many leftovers.
And this is the first year that I actually had a slice of my own sweet potato pie. This year is the first year, because normally by the time I get to the pie, it's wiped out. So this year, I took a piece and I put it up. And I said, okay, I'm going to have a piece slice of it. But I tried to be as limited as I could with the food because it is so good and so overwhelming. I just said, you know what, Brent, enough, that's it. I put a little bit on the plate. And I
didn't. I allowed myself to have that one day. I enjoyed it. It was great. It's your girl, KayB. And thank you for joining us today on the Ladies Room. We have a very special guest by the name of Pastor Walker Tucker III. He's going to come on after the break and talk about his book, From Compton to Congress.
Okay, that's awesome.
I was very intrigued by reading this book.
Oh, that's
very
awesome.
Intriguing.
So we can share some of the stuff with us when he gets here and we can talk about it. And that seems like a real journey.
Right.
From Compton to Congress.
That's an African American.
Yes, and that just shows the possibilities of what we can do, no matter what.
Right.
It can be done. You can move, you can excel, you can grow, you can become. And it's necessary that we understand that. And so his voice would be more than welcome, because it will put out there that message of encouragement that you can
especially
do.
for her young African American boys growing up.
Exactly.
Because not everyone is playing football, basketball.
Or into music.
No, right.
Or dance.
Or dance.
But no, we have creative people in all areas, in all aspects of this life. We sometimes some of them may have to find what their creativity is.
Right.
And we just have to have programs and things that are available for our youth so they can find out who they are. Because it's important to understand who you are on purpose. Correct. Period. But I did have a Lady of the Week, and I chose Miss Kerry Washington.
Kerry Washington.
Yes. I remember watching her. Hey, Kerry. I remember watching her in one of her movies about this young girl who was just caught in a dilemma of going to school, then she wound up getting pregnant, and it was just a really good movie. And I actually let my daughters watch it because I wanted them to see the life choices that we make and how one choice can change your whole outcome of who you are. It would not stop you from becoming, but it can alter the road. It can alter the road.
What was the name of the movie?
It was another girl on the UTA or something.
Another girl.
What was it? Yeah, it was another girl on the IRT, and it was really good. She was young. This is when she first started out. And this little movie, it just struck home with me. And I watched it several times before I allowed my daughters to watch it. But then I set them down because I thought it was pivotal in their life because they were becoming young teenage girls. And, body is changing. Right. Concepts are changing. And so let's see what happens. And so I went through the movie with them. And I was glad I did. Because they really enjoyed it, and she really did. But I dig her because she continues to be a stellar woman. She continues to move forward. She continues to build herself, and she didn't get herself stigmatized. She said, "Okay, I can do this." She did the whole Scandal thing. I loved Scandal. I watched it forever, until I can. I don't have time to watch it anymore. But I love the fact she married an African male. And they have 2 beautiful children. And
I thought she only had one. They have
2 children. Oh, okay. And she also was picked for the National Convention to re-elect Barack. She played an intricate part in that. So she was out there on the battlefield. So there are a lot of people that are doing things behind the scenes that we're not familiar with or that we don't hear about. But that doesn't mean that they're not fighting for the rights. And she even deals with the LGBT community. She feels it's important to be yourself, express who you are. I don't know, right or wrong, because we cannot stop it. It doesn't matter if they say, they're gay or, lesbians or whatever it is, but she supports the right of freedom for freedom of choice. So she's doing her thing out there. But I just want to say that I really appreciate her, and I think that she's beautiful, and I think she's on the right path, and I'm taking my hat off to her today, Kerry Washington.
That's a good one.
So who is your Lady of the Week?
For my Lady of the Week, I chose Mae Jemingson. I'm losing my voice. Mae Jemingson, she is an African-American engineer, physician, and NASA astronaut. She was the first African-American woman to travel into space back in September 12, 1992. Okay. And what I found interesting about her, as a young child, she was interested in anthropology, archaeology, and astrology. Okay. And these are subjects that, younger children are not normally interested in. And it made me think of my son, Chase Benford. Congratulations to you, babe. He made the principal's honor roll again.
Okay. Oh, my God, Chase.
But out of all of my children, he took the different route. So he finds interest in archaeology and subjects like that. So I try to back him, but
it's important. It's
very important.
There's a lot of things he could do to continue on with his studies and that,
And we're exploring that now. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's different, from the football and all that, but it's fun.
No, it's different. And it's not the answer for everybody. No. But if he's using his mind, he's expanding his thought pattern, that's most important right there. Right. Because we need more of everything else. We need more doctors.
Black physicians and astronauts, all that. So I'm really encouraging him, and it made me think of Mae Jemingson.
Okay, really so a little bit more about Mae. What is she doing now?
She's a physician, engineer, NASA astronaut.
Okay. It reminds me of the movie Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Those black women were...
Yeah.
They were extraordinary.
Very extraordinary.
Extraordinary to do that.
And I think that's what's missing today. Because, a lot of us are into music, too, and, just other things. Right. So this kind of puts you in a perspective like, hey, this is something I would strive for.
Just had an interesting thought. I'm going to write it down. For the new business that we're starting, maybe it should be focused for the children to be on other on other things,
other interests. Because our main thing was like, oh, the acting and this and that. Yes. But you know, think outside the box.
Oh yeah, and that might be a really good thing to create.
It really sparked my interest because, you know, like I said with my son Chase, you know, he's exploring, so I'm exploring, so I'm learning more, and yeah, it's very.
No, it's just interesting because I remember I helped. I don't know if you remember little Phil. That okay, so I helped Phil write his thesis, and it was about rocks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, imagine 28 pages about rocks. Oh, wow. But what it is that it is different and it is interesting, and we need to expand that concept. So I think maybe when we do discuss the new venture, that
these topics need to be implemented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I just wanted to say that Dr. Jemison, she resigned from NASA. And she founded the Jemison Group. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Jemison or Jemison.
Okay.
Yeah, so she
Where's it located?
I'm not sure. We'll have to look that up.
Okay, yeah, we'll look that up.
But it focuses on improving healthcare in Africa, which I think is very necessary.
Okay, I mean, it is improving healthcare in Africa.
Why you sound a little apprehensive?
No, because I'm saying Oprah, we got the girls in Africa, but we have a whole bunch of girls in LA, in California, Chicago, and in America that needs help. It's the mindset of our young girls and our young guys.
But they don't have like the means and stuff that we have out here. It's like a lot different for them. You know what I mean?
No,
they don't
I understand. I have one of my girlfriends that she's actually she builds in Africa all the time, and I hear the stories all the time from the bush to the city on what's happening, and I get it and I understand it, but I also do believe that we are in America and we are in the cities, Chicago, LA, Detroit, places where there's the same need is welcomed, and it's needed. I'm sorry, it's needed. It's absolutely needed. We can walk the streets. I told you I ran into a young girl. Remember the first story I told when we started the air was I talked to 3 girls in one day and asked them what were their goals, what were you trying to achieve, and this was in Compton, California. And I was just devastated by the response. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not taking nothing away from nobody. It's beautiful to go into another country and help and give and be, allow them the opportunity. I'm not saying that that's wrong. Please don't misunderstand me.
No, I didn't take it that way.
But I'm saying that here in America, when you ask a 16-year-old young lady from Compton, what would you aspire to become? She said what she wanted to do was party.
That you was the Section 8 girl.
Yes, party. No, that was another one. But and I said, okay, let me rephrase the question just to make sure I'm understanding. So I rephrased the question. She said she just wanted to party. You're 16. No, you don't want to party. You want to become. You want to set your feet down on some implement it on something that's going to be beneficial.
No, I agree. We definitely need programs in place here. But I mean, there for the healthcare they don't have.
No, I get it.
They can't go to a doctor. So that's what I'm talking about. The healthcare.
And we need new implementing a different healthcare here in America too. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just that other voice.
We need better doctors that don't take that oath.
I know. Stop it.
But coming back from break, help us welcome Pastor Walker Tucker. We'll be right back.
Just cut my Welcome back to the ladies' room.
Welcome back.
I'm Brenda. We with Morris Media Live today.
It's your girl KayB, the ladies' room.
Okay. We have a special guest.
We do. We have, joining us is Walter Tucker III. He is the author from Compton to Congress. Here's the book.
And you can purchase the book where?
You can purchase a book on Amazon, or you can do the ebook on Kindle, or you can come down to my church, which is Truth and Love Christian Church in Carson, California, 1129 East Dominguez Street, Suite B, as in Bible. And you can come and purchase it there, too, and get a signed copy.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
And some words of wisdom.
Oh, absolutely.
Go along with it.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Well, Walter, we invited you on because I thought your story was very intriguing. I'm not through the whole book, but I'm halfway there.
Good.
And I found it interesting how you became valedictorian of Compton High. Then you went on to graduate from USC, graduating Georgetown Law School. And you passed the California State Bar.
Right.
And was the youngest African American in Congress.
Well, I was, first of all, I was the youngest when I became mayor of Compton. I was the youngest mayor in the history of Compton at that time. I was 33 years old. Wow. And then when I went to Congress, I was 35. I became the youngest African American to go to Congress from California. From the state of California.
From California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what intrigued you to write the book, or what encouraged you to write the book?
Well, I believe my life has been very extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And as I lived it, it was lived out. A lot of it was lived out in the public eye. A lot of people saw what happened in my life, not only the rise, but the fall. And I certainly wanted to be able to talk about the restoration. Mm-hmm. So all three parts of those. And then people kept encouraging me. They said, man, you need to write a book. All this stuff that's happening to you, you up there with the presidents and with the kings, and yet you down with the people, and, you went to prison and you came out. Now you've been a pastor for 17 years. And so I said, hey, maybe they got something, they're right. So I think I'll write a book.
So the story is to be shared.
That's right. That's right.
It's to be shared for growth, for development, and for transformation and understanding.
To encourage and to help others. That's exactly why I wrote the book.
And that's important because we need that.
We do. From
Congress to prison.
That's right.
That's a really big transformation.
Right.
And an adjustment.
You got that right.
Life-changing.
Interestingly enough, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, this book I worked on for 17 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a long time. Now, here's the thing. People ask me all the time, what took you so long to write the book? A lot of things. First of all, I had to convince myself to do it because, I knew it was going to be a lot of work in addition to all the other things I was doing.
Right.
The second thing is I had to convince myself about how transparent I was going to be. Because, facts and figures, all the public stuff, that's one thing. But actually getting into the untold story, that's another thing.
Absolutely.
And the depth of which you become transparent is a decision. It's a challenge. And then I started getting into the personal aspects of my life and then weaving everything together. Now, here's the point. When I made that decision that I was going to do it, I wrote the whole story out. My mother, who is an author, she looked at it and she said, you have 3 books here. Right. And I said, And I said, okay, I'm going to trust you, Mom. And she was right. So actually, this is volume 1 because it takes you through my life from the streets of Compton and Compton High and all that, through all the schooling, through me being the mayor, to going to Congress, and then through a trial, which I'm fighting to against this charge of bribery. But the prison experience, now that's That's volume 2.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That's book 2.
And I understand that Johnny Cochran was one of the lawyers that was on the team with
Johnny
you.
Cochran was my lawyer.
Okay.
Until the OJ trial.
Until OJ. So it's kind of like I'm the Black Forrest Gump because I'm there throughout all the history's big events. If you want to know about the 90s, read this book because you're going to find out about the LA riots. You're going to find about OJ. You're going to find about everything is in here.
Did you touch? Because what I really want to know is how did the United States government implement so many drugs into our community, and we became victims of that?
Well, I didn't get into that much in this book.
Okay.
But one of the things I did get into in this book was some of the policies and the mindset of the FBI and how they do target black leaders. Not only elected officials, but anybody that they see is coming up who has the ability to influence people to move in a direction, they try to stamp those leaders out.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's known as Operation Frumention.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a lot of journalists that wrote about that.
Right. So basically, when Hoover came in and he was the first director of the FBI, his attitude was that black people were not human. That same attitude that a lot of races have had over the years in this country, that we're less than 3/5 of a man. Well, he had this attitude that we were not human and that we were not deserving of roles and positions of leadership. And so it's kind of an interesting paradox, because if we're not human and don't have the sense that people would think that we should have, then how would we even become, these leaders, right? So then, left alone, if we're not human and we're not smart, we would just fail on our own. So then, why do they have to help the situation? Right? Have to come against us.
They want to assist the situation because it's too much for them to bear mentally. That we are brilliant, that we are talented, that we are forceful.
That's exactly right. And I was listening in when you all were having this conversation earlier about young people, and I really want to say that I applaud you in having this heart to want to help the next generation. That's what I'm doing with the book also. Absolutely. In fact, recently I had an opportunity this summer to go to Long Beach State, where they had young people from Long Beach Jordan High School, and they were on the campus of Long Beach State for 3 weeks, and I was their key mentee, and they were there living on campus, and I was taking them through the book and teaching them life lessons. So it's all about trying to empower that next generation. But what I was saying is, I was listening to you all, and I was hearing you all talking about our young people and the creativity that we have. And I agree with you. I encourage you to definitely broaden that scope. Don't just say we're preparing you. Yeah, we're in Hollywood, and we know we can sing, we know we can dance, we know we can throw a football. But hey, we're, like you said, brilliant. We have brilliant minds. We do. The truth of the matter is, we weren't always given the opportunity. But honey, giving us the opportunity, we'll run with it. We'll run with it. Law, science, technology, you name it. It doesn't matter what it is.
And I told Kim, I think this a couple weeks ago, that I was a little angry with myself, which I'm past it, but with raising, I had 6 children, and I think now looking back, there should not have even been a choice of what you want to be. Each one of them should have been something. This is just me.
No, I'm trying to tell you, that's in the book.
Yes.
That's how my mama did me. My mama said, you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah, it's no choice. You know what I mean? We don't give them a choice. We say, I had 6 children. I should have had a doctor, a dentist.
Everything we need.
Everything we need to build a community or that is useful so that you can apply that. Then once you complete that, then you can go do what you want to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm starting out with my grandchildren now.
I'm starting with my younger two.
What they say, second time around is better than the first time.
Oh my God, it is. Because you learn so much.
Yeah,
and
you
you
really
understand
do.
so much.
I'm a grandparent too, so I'm doing that with my grandson too.
That's where I'm at with them.
Because the mind is so moldable and programmable. That little mind, and when we look at the devastation, in fact, we were talking off camera about what we can do to help our people. Exactly. One of the biggest things we can do is start at a young age. We're sitting up here talking about, the government ain't doing this. The teachers ain't doing this. The school's not doing this. It's about your house. It's about you.
But here's the thing with that. But here's the thing with that, which I understand, because now the time is different, the generation is different. And I grew up in a 2-parent household where they weren't the most educated parents, but we learned a lot of core values, and we understood understood a lot.
Right.
Now we don't have the time to.
We don't.
I'm not going to say we don't have the time. I'm saying we haven't taken the time, and the parents, young parents today, are not taking the time out. We missed the whole generation. They're not taking the time out to sit down with the children and say, "This is what we need to do," and starting them at a young age. Take them to a bank.
And the family unit's not the same. Not just the mom and dad, but you don't have the grandparents. A lot of homes don't.
Right.
You know, you don't have the aunties and uncles that are hands on.
That's right. That's right. In other words, you can only give what you have. You can only teach what you know. You can only show where you go. So if they don't, that's where we were talking about these programs and that village that is so necessary to help these parents and young parents, single parents, you name it. We all know the stories statistically about how many single parents we have in the black community. So we have to, again, reach out. But the problem is, we have been largely, I hate to say it, but we've been largely deceived into a this Western mindset of selfishness and materialism that says, oh, if I got a new flat screen and a new car and a house on a hill and everything, I got it made. Well, listen, if your people don't have it made, you don't have it made. If your relatives don't have it made, you don't have it made. So listen, my mother years ago, she wrote a book called Jivetown, which was based on Compton.
Write that down.
Yeah, and she was talking about the fact that if you don't prepare these young black men to be who God called them to be, who are your daughters going to marry?
Right.
Now, understand.
That's a big
understand. I'm not saying that people can't marry any race that they want to. That's fine.
No.
But what I'm saying is, if you look at other races, for the most part, they seem to be married within their own race.
No, they do.
And all I'm saying is that at least let us have some good viable options for the people that they can look and say,
but it's difficult. How do we get to the mindset of our young black men who has been completely manipulated?
But there are a lot of programs in place, like the 100 men, black men,
and it should be.
It
should be
part of that.
It should be 25,000 black men there.
But there are a lot of them out there. People just don't know about them or how to join them.
Here's my point. You said the 100 black men, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So today, 2018, I just heard about it.
Okay.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So
that's why I said the information is not so readily available.
So with that program and those men that are in there, that's wonderful. But all the lost ones walking around Compton, walking around Watts, walking around L.A. with their pants down, with a 40 ounce and a blunt, how do we get to them?
Right.
How do we get them to understand that gangbanging is not what it is? You guys are part of this problem now. The system, they utilize you and manipulated you mentally to make you feel that the streets is where it should be, which is not, because you don't own any of it.
Right.
They still can come here and take over and do whatever they want to you. So
you have no
gangbanging,
choice
it's still, that's not what it's going. It's not going to save you.
You know,
right?
You know
it's
where,
a mindset.
You know where everything starts. Everything starts in a human being, and we were talking again off camera for a second about the fact that I'm a Christian, unapologetically, unashamedly, boldly. I'm a Christian. I believe that Christ is the answer. However, I understand that different people have different faiths and believe different things. But I've studied all the faiths, and I can tell you that all the faiths talk about two main themes. One is righteousness. In other words, you have to clean yourself up. Mm-hmm. You got to get right in terms of integrity, honesty. And then the second thing is unselfishness, which is really love. In other words, your values have to be such that it's not always about you. In other words, it involves you, but it's really not about you. Okay?
Right.
So everything starts in the heart. It starts in the heart. If you don't have a heart to want to help others, you really are a part of the problem and not the solution.
And that's true. But I want to just give a brief story about, I met a young man years ago, and he came to my house. And when he came to my house, I started not to open up the door because he looked like a gangbanger. Mm-hmm. And literally looked like a gangbanger. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to open. But then my inner spirit said, Brenda, open the door. I opened the door, invited the young man in. didn't know him personally. I'd seen him a couple times. He stepped into my house. I had a bookcase full of books because I'm an avid reader. So he walked over to the bookcase and he pulled out The Miseducation of the Negro. He pulled out the ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. He pulled out books that I had read that I was like, oh my God, you know about these books? He said, yes. Long story short, he asked me, Miss Brenda, can I come to your house once a week and read?
To read?
Wait.
Wow.
And I said, why would you come to my house? You can take the book home and read. He told me that his grandmother was a Crip. His grandfather was a Crip. His mother and father are Crips. His sisters and brothers are Crips. And that he cannot read in that facility because
he needed a safe environment.
Yeah. So back to what you said earlier, it is environment. But if you're starting off with an environment such as that, then where do you go? Where do you go when you want to get that one gem out of that whole mess?
But he went searching for it and he found it.
He did. No, he
so
did.
it was within himself. You know what I mean?
I understand that, but here's the thing. My whole point of saying the whole story is that he was just dipped in Cripness.
Right. Right.
His whole surroundings, everything he knew, everybody around him was a Crip. His grandmother.
That was his,
and let me say this, because here's what your story says to me, Brenda. We're talking a lot these days, and for obvious reasons, about the issue of racism, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we are not emphasizing enough and talking enough about is this issue of prejudice. Now, some people say, well, that's the same thing, racism, mm-hmm. prejudice. But see, what you just talked to me about was prejudice. Prejudice is two words together. Pre means before, and judgment. When we prejudge a situation, it's not good. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us prejudge based on appearances, based on what we heard somebody say. We prejudge things all the time. Now, me, again, as a Christian and as a pastor, I am trying to help everybody I can, and everybody is welcome. I don't prejudge somebody because of their clothing. I don't prejudge them because of the color of their skin. I don't prejudge them if they're wearing a hat or whatever. And this is the problem. We gotta take people as they are, reach out to them, and try to help them. And I'm so glad that you shared that story, because in saying so, you're candidly telling us that you were prejudging him at first.
I did.
But it's almost like the old saying, they say, don't judge a book by its cover, because you don't. Yeah. And guess what? Guess what? When I was in prison, after I fought my case and I, did everything I could, and I lost the case, and I as Job said, the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. I mean, who wants to go to prison?
Right.
Nobody. But I went, and guess what I found there?
What?
I found the smartest, most intelligent black men that you have ever met in all your life. They're in prison, and they're deep. And you sitting up there, oh, these folks in prison, they don't know nothing. I mean, you find some really, and I'm not just talking about, they strong, they big on the weight power. No, they strong in the word, they strong in prayer, they strong in mind, soul, and body. So it's interesting. Again, we have to break down a lot of those prejudgments about a lot of things.
No, I understand that. And that taught me a great lesson, because in all actuality, I didn't want to open the door. I'm like, what is this little gangbanger want in my door? And I'm there, and I'm a little nervous, so I didn't want to open the door. But that other inner voice inside of me said, Brenda, open the door. And I opened it. And so I do understand that. And I did read a book from another brother in prison. I think his name was Francis Farmer. I think the last name was Farmer. Okay. And he went to jail and did like 20-some years on some stuff that he didn't do, and he got out. But very intelligent, very bright, very brilliant. And then, like you said, there are brilliant minds everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah. But then once you get into the system, and the other thing which my youngest daughter always implements and just really push for is understanding the law. Right. Because if we understand the law, then we understand what not to do. We understand what to do when it's necessary. And a lot of the brothers that are in there with the brilliant minds are in there for long periods of time, because
they become jailhouse lawyers. A lot of them,
but a lot of them do. Yeah.
But it's important that we do open up ourselves. It's important that we do not misjudge people. But my question is, how do we get to those brothers and how do we get to those sisters who are not going to come to the church? Who are not going to say, I want to buy the book, or who is not going to, looking for that answer, but need that answer?
Well, first of all, one of the things about the book was this is a part of my outreach ministry. This book is reaching a lot of people outside the church. In fact, I'm spending this year, 2018, I have been able to go into so many places and reach so many people that would not come to the church. So this is, I don't want to minimize this, because this is been a vehicle for me to reach a lot of people, young, old, etc. But the other way is we can do that by service.
Right.
We can do that by service. You know, Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's a phrase that we all use in society today. The point to the parable of the Good Samaritan was, here was a man and he was bleeding and dying and in need, natural need. He didn't need a preached sermon. He needed some help. And so we have to meet people at their point of need. And like a young man told me many years ago, he said, people don't know, that people don't care what you know until they first know that you care. So we have to let people know that we care through our actions. Okay. And that's what Truth and Love Christian Church is all about. Every Sunday, she knows this. She comes to the church every Sunday. We have free food giveaway. Right. We're meeting people at their point of need. Every Christmas, we give Christmas toys away. You know what I'm saying? We're doing what we can to help the community.
Because I visit a church that also feed everybody every Sunday. They come in and get a hot meal. They can get food to go. I understand that. But this is my main concern with church, with any type of organization. When a person comes, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes when a person comes to an organization such as a church, they're coming because there's a need that needs to be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And just off the top of my head, what I would think if I were a pastor or a first lady, what I would implement. I would implement them coming in, feeding them, meeting that need, but also saying, okay, we have different divisions in here that can assist you with your life. Different divisions.
Oh, we deal with the whole person.
If you want to be a nurse, we have nursing. If you want to be a doctor, we have doctors. If you want to be whatever you want to be, that facility that you stand over, I believe, should open up those doors to the community. Opposed to, I can't just keep giving you food.
Absolutely. So you mean at school?
They need to know how to be educated to become self-sufficient. Is my point.
So that's kind of what you were telling us
that's
about.
That's what I was telling you earlier.
That's what he was telling us about what they're having Saturday.
I'm sponsoring
Saturday.
A leadership empowerment summit, and it's next Saturday, December the 8th. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Truth and Love Christian Church, 1129 East Dominguez Street, Suite B as in Bible, in the city of Carson. Now, the reason for this empowerment summit is exactly what you're talking about. You give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. Mm-hmm. You teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. People have to be empowered. You know, one of the most misquoted scriptures in the Bible is, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall, and people always say, set you free. That's not what it says.
What does it say?
John 8:32, it says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. There's a very big, important difference. See, having been in prison, I understand that you can set somebody free physically and they can still be in bondage.
Mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So you made free is internal.
Mm-hmm.
Set free is external.
Right.
And so what you're talking about, this is why when you said that you read a lot of books, and I hope you read my book too, since you're see, I got you. I got Brenda. She said, I'm after book reading. I was like,
you got one right for her? That's
in
mine.
Fact, she said you can't have that. That's hers. Okay. But I'm gonna make sure to get. I'm gonna make sure to get you. I'm gonna make sure to get your book. I'm gonna make sure to get. I'm gonna make sure to get your book. But here's the point: when you get it on the inside, that's power. Nobody can take it from you. You can be in prison. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. But he was made free on the inside. And that's what we want to do. We do want to deal with the whole person. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and that's my point.
Made free.
Yeah, we have to understand that it is imperative that our people understand you have to be able to feed yourself.
My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge.
Right.
And the scripture says, and the poor you'll have with you also, always. In other words, unfortunately, there's always going to be some folk who are begging because they don't want to stop begging. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No,
but our job. Okay, here's the thing. Like you talk about the voice, the inner voice. Mm-hmm. Well, there's other voices too, and the outer voice says this. It says, "You wasting your time. You can't help them people. They're not able to be helped." Well, guess what? The inner voice says, "Well, I tell you what, maybe I can't help all of them, but I can help some of them.
If I could help,
and I'm gonna help as many as I can.
Possibly.
Now, if everybody has that attitude, hey, we can make a difference. We can make a difference.
But here's the thing too. Here's the thing with that first outer voice, that you can't help those people, and not to make light of it, but I really do believe, after living so many years, is that you do get to a point where it's very disturbing to continue to try to help people who are not trying to help themselves. Mm-hmm. It is very wearing. It is very put you in a mindset of, can they really be helped? How many years up out of slavery are we? How many from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X to W. Du Bois?
And here's the answer.
To right now.
You can only help those who want to be helped.
And
what you do is you focus on
the ones.
There you go. You focus on the ones that want to be helped.
But see, that's a downside to that too, because it's just like in school. If there's a student in a class that's struggling, they're not going to get as much help as a student who has a question or may want to know something because of the difference in their grades. But here's the thing too that I was speaking on earlier, which is that's the brother on the corner that think he don't need the help. I don't need the help. I got this. I can beg up $400 a day and I'm okay.
There's casualties in every war. I mean, that's just the way it is.
The young man who knocked on your door, that was a divine appointment.
He was.
And he was saying, I want to be helped.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying, I want a safe place. I want somebody. And the spirit on the inside of you said, hey, let me invite him in. And let me tell him he can even have some of these books to look at. There's, again, we even see it in nature, whether it's the starfish that are pushed up on the beach shore, or whether it's the sea turtles. That voice says, you can't put them back in the sea. There's just too many of them. You can't help them. He said, well, I'm going to help this one. I'm going to help that one. I'm going to help that one. As many as you can. And God puts people across your path. So as a pastor who has been given an opportunity to have a place where people can come, a place of grace where people can come, we call it a place of safety, victory, and true prosperity. And true prosperity is spiritual first and natural second. Okay. Right. So again, we're going to deal with the whole person, but we're also going outside of those walls. And I'm finding more pastors doing that also. In fact, at this leadership summit that we're having, I'm going to have several pastors to come. And I really thank God for that, because usually when pastors get together, it's all about, well, who's the keynote speaker and who's the band and who's who's singing and all of that. But these pastors say, or whose church is it at? And it's not even about that. They're realizing that we have to work together, and we have to step outside of our own pulpits and our own four walls and our own egos. And we have to humble ourselves.
Absolutely.
To make this thing work.
Absolutely. Well,
now, I wanted to ask you a question about the young man. Do you still talk to him? Do you still?
No, actually, I have no communication with him at this time. Okay. But during that particular time period in my life, and I was available, he did come down every Thursday, and he'd sit down.
And you know what? He's probably helping someone else. He probably have a niece or a nephew that he's handing the book to and telling them.
And I just appreciate being able to do that for him. And he turned out to be a really, really beautiful individual. He didn't want to gangbang anymore.
Right.
But I'm just, with everything around him and everyone around him, they
were about that life.
They were totally wanted him to maintain a gangbanger.
Yeah, we have to remember the value of one changed life.
I understand.
And you also have to remember that every seed reproduces after its kind.
Right.
So look, Jesus changed the whole world with 12 men. 12 men. He didn't disciple hundreds and thousands. He spent 3 years with 12 men. And I was just reading a beautiful quote from somebody. But to paraphrase it, the value of your life is not measured by what happens in your presence, but what happens in your absence. In other words, if you do a really good job, then when you're gone, or like you said, when you don't see this young man, it's a good question you asked. What you put in him is still going to be reproducing. Yeah, so
it's like parents with children.
That's it.
With parents, because no matter how they act at home, when you always get a good report when they out and about, they're out and about, and people say, "Oh, your kids are beautiful. Oh, your kids are wonderful. Oh my God, I love your children. Oh, they this and that." That's letting you know that you have instilled some great values in them because they're showing what you're doing when you're absent from them. So I get that. I understand that.
As KayB knows, a big part of this book, since you're halfway through, then you already read some of the information about my dad.
Right, and that was my next question.
Okay, go ahead. Well, I'm going to let you ask it then. Go ahead.
No, I want to start off by your grandfather, because that's where it started, your grandfather.
Very good.
And I thought that was very interesting. He was a doctor.
Yeah. Well, my grandfather was the principal.
Oh, the
principal. He was the principal
okay.
of the high school in Oklahoma, in Haskell, Oklahoma. And at that time, now watch this, the schools were, quote, segregated at that time. Mm-hmm. Now, I know we fought, to get rid of segregation, but interestingly enough, in this segregated school that was literally elementary to high school, and he was the principal, he had 8 children. Those 8 children all received at least their masters. Wow. This is back in what? The early part of the 20th century, 30s, 40s. They all received their masters. 3 of the 8 became doctors. Okay. They put up the first medical building in Watts, the Tucker brothers at 103rd. Okay, that's right there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Absolutely. So what am I saying? I'm saying that people always look at the circumstances. If that could happen then we don't need to be sitting around complaining, talking about, well, I would be able to make it, but Trump this, Trump that. Hey, listen, don't make excuses based on the conditions that you find yourself in. Just apply yourself. So it started with my grandfather, who was the principal, and then my father and his brothers were doctors.
Were the doctors? Mm-hmm. Okay,
which was awesome.
Right.
From 1930s to right now, because there's still a great plight that we are still fighting. But we need to know that there are winners, and we need to know that if you put forth the effort, the outcome will be different. Yes. And if you understand who you are in Christ,
that's right. That's right.
That's your belief, then that will help move you. Right. And we need to lean more towards that than ourselves, because there's something happening.
Right. And like I said, if you are of another faith, then be devout in your faith. There's so many people who say, well, we even have people who are Christians. They say, well, I'm a Christian, but they're not devout in their faith. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're gonna be, then be. Right. If you're gonna really be, then be.
Be diligent.
Be dedicated.
There you go.
Be determined.
That's right.
Diligent, dedicated, and determined.
And watch this.
And disciplined.
3 points. There you go. You can preach that, sister. Go ahead, Sister Brenda. I'll let you preach it. So, but here's the thing. You heard me talk about true prosperity. Right. And I want to talk about that a little bit in terms of what it is. True prosperity is literally having true priorities. So we have to change our value system. And it's a funny thing about this, too. The Bible says, here's the key verse of true prosperity. It's Matthew 6:33. It says, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. See, you got to clean up your life. Mm-hmm. He says, and
what does that mean? Excuse me. Clean up your life. What does that mean?
Clean up your life. Stop lying. Stop cheating. Stop hating. Stop doing wrong things. Again, based upon the will and the word of God. A lot of people, God can be pretty much summarized in 2 major aspects: holiness and love. Holiness and love. And holy, the definition for holy actually means to be set apart. Just because everybody's out there speaking negative, it doesn't mean you have to.
Right.
That one of the big problems that our people have, people of color, we speaking of 3 points, we criticize, we complain. I need another C. We criticize, we complain, and we grumble and complain. And the point is, those those things are what kept the people out of the promised land.
Okay, so, and I read the story about them going over to the promised land, and no matter what they did, it was never enough. No matter what Moses, no matter what happened, they was quick to turn on them. I mean, they even turned on Jesus, right? They picked the villain over him. But, okay, my question to that is, that's bothering me the most is, why are we like that? Why? Because it's not just one person.
No.
It's not just one person. It's a mindset of a many. So why? How did we get there?
I'll answer your question. It's called the flesh. It's called our sin nature. In other words, to put it in a more layman's term, it's your lower nature. You have two natures. You have the nature of man, and then you have the nature of God, the Spirit, all right? And so you can decide which nature you want to operate in. Now, the more you read God's word, the more you will be led to operate in your higher nature. Your lower nature reacts and your higher nature responds. I'll say it again. Your lower nature reacts. When things don't look like they're going on right in your life, like when they were out in the desert and they didn't have any water, they react. Yeah, you brought us out here. Ain't no water. Ain't nothing. Well, wait a minute now. The man just parted the Red Sea, took you out of 400 years of slavery. I don't hear no praising going on up in here. I don't hear nobody saying, well, we don't have any water, but God just brought us out of this. I guess he gonna find some water for us too. No faith. No gratefulness. But, okay, we've reduced Thanksgiving to a day. By the way, Brenda, happy Thanksgiving. I ain't talking about what happened on that day. I'm talking about 2 days.
Every day.
Every day. Come on now.
Being thankful for everything.
Come on, every day.
Being appreciative. We understand
every
that.
Day.
But this is what's bugging me is our mindset.
That's what I'm talking about.
Our mindset is so. What is the solution? How do we stop that? It's just like a cancer rolling through our community that's just keeping us in that type of complaining, grumpy, negative, always have the worst thing to say no matter what.
Well, I have a suggestion. Start with you, because I look up to you. I see you doing it, I'm going to do it. Then my daughter's going to see me doing it, she's going to do it.
And it's one man at a time, one step at a time, one situation at a time. But we need a massive injection now.
Well, let me continue to answer that. And I'll use the word you just gave. You said we need a massive injection. Yes. That was the key, what you just said. Injection. Inject. Injecting, putting it what? In. Mm-hmm. See, in order for your mind and your mouth to change, there has to be an injection into your heart. That's what I was telling you earlier when I said it's a matter of the heart. The word, the truth of God has to be injected into your heart constantly. You know how people talk about brainwashing? Right. When they say brainwashing, they're saying somebody's telling you something and they're telling it to you over and over, constantly, and then what? And then change the way you think. But see, we've looked at brainwashing as a negative term, but the Bible says we need to be renewed by the washing of the water of the word. You got to get so much word in you that it begins to wash your mind, reprogram the way you think. Because as a man thinketh, so is he. Yeah. If you don't spend, okay, let me ask you this question. You believe there's God?
Yes.
All right. Do you believe he's all-seeing and all-knowing?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen God?
That's kind of tricky to me.
Okay. All right. Let me say to you again. Let me ask you this way then. How do you get to know God?
Through the word, through meditation, through prayer, through just, understanding. But here's the thing about the word is that it can be complicated and it can be difficult to understand because there's so many things in there that maybe things have been taken out of the word, the Bible. Let's use the Bible and be honest. Maybe things have been taken out of the Bible. There are stories in there that just it seems incomplete to me.
Because there are stories that were
incomplete. Right now I'm reading
that were taken out of the Bible, correct?
Right now dealing with...
all right. Well, How much time do we have?
Oh, wow. We have 5 minutes.
We got what?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay, so I got to give you. I'm apologizing up front by telling you I'm gonna give you a 1-2 minute answer, right? Okay, because that's all the time we have. That's all the time we have. You have to have me for another show talking about this.
And we will do that.
Volume 2 is coming with.
The bottom line is the Bible, all of the Bible is God's word. It people say, well, how do I know that I can believe in it? Man wrote it. The Bible itself tells you that God selected the men and then he breathed on them to write what they could not write. I mean, just think about it. The first 5 books of the first book of the Bible, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. What man wrote that? Who was around? Do you see what I'm saying?
No,
in other words, God had to breathe on or inspire a man to know what took place before man existed. By the same token, let's go to the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is talking about what is yet to exist, and somebody wrote it. That's not. So if I take this pen and I write a note, question, who wrote the note, the pen or me? I did. The pen was just an instrument in my hand. Men were just instruments in his hand. Now, the second part of the answer is this. You say, well, weren't some books taken out of the Bible? God not only selected the people to write it, he selected the people to decide what was going to make the cut, if you will, which is called the canon. In other words, things that for sure God said that all agree with themselves. The Bible confirms itself. Everything that's in there is supposed to be in there, and everything is in there is what you need.
Okay, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not saying that you can't not pick that book up and find complete value, life lessons, everything that you need in there. I'm not saying that.
You get out of it what you put into it.
I know, I understand.
And if you keep injecting
everything.
All right, listen, I'm finished with this story. Guy said, man, I'm sorry I did that. Please forgive me. I ain't been taking my meds. Guess what? You got to keep taking your meds. Every day, you got to keep. Come on, girl.
Because wait a minute, because
you got to keep taking.
Wait a minute,
good. You're only as good as you said. Inject. You have to inject.
But wait a minute.
Excuse me, Walter. She means take your herbs.
Whatever
we all herbs.
You know what I mean.
Herbs.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, but whatever it is, because too much of anything, we could even. I'm scared of the meds because these doctors are putting everybody on everything.
Wait a minute, doctor. If you talking about herbs, wait a minute. My point was ingesting.
I know, I got it. But here's the thing. I'm reading right now. I'm presently reading about all the women in the Bible. Every woman in the Bible. I purchased a book about the women in the Bible and the part that they played. And then I want to start off with Eve, and then it went to her and Adam and the whole thing of them not eating, taking the fruit and this and that. And then it got down to they had 2 children. Then it got down
they had multiple children.
They had children, yeah. So then we have a whole city right after that. There's something missing right there. Where'd that whole city come from?
How much time do I have?
We don't have time, but can you please let everyone know where they can see you at, where your church is at, where to purchase the book, and
I'm definitely going to read the book before you come back.
The quick answer is that those were the siblings. Okay, and then I'll come back later to talk about it. But this book, From Compton to Congress. Oh, by the way, there is a subtitle to the book, and it is His Grace for My Race. The whole theme of the book is that God's grace is greater than your mistakes. Okay. That's the key. That's the key part of the book. The point is we all make mistakes, but God has a plan for you. The Bible says in Jeremiah 29:11, he says, I know the plans that I have for you. They're good and not evil, plans to give you a hope and an expected end. And guess what? You may fall, but by the grace of God, you're going to get back up. And so you can pick it up on Amazon. From Compton to Congress, you can pick it up on Amazon, or you pick it up on Kindle, the ebook, or you can come to Truth and Love Christian Church in Carson, California, and get your signed copy, and God's going to bless you. Is it a good book?
It's a great book.
Well, I'm definitely going to read it. And once I read it, I'm definitely going to get back on the air with it. I'm going to read it from cover to cover.
I'm going to send you your copy through KayB.
Give me a couple weeks and I'll have it completed. And then we'll have you back and we can go into more detail about what you're doing for the community. And I think it's wonderful. And I think you're beautiful.
Bless you.
So, yes. I want to say thank you.
Listen, I know you're beautiful. Inside and out.
Thank you so much.
Well,
oh, yeah.
I know her. No,
oh, yeah.
Voice Media Live. I'm Brenda. She know all the good stuff.
Right.
So that's it.
The ladies' room, your girl KayB. Have a good weekend.
Everybody enjoy your weekend.